Hi, thanks very much for joining me for an idle chat with Matthew Carroll, a colleague in Chicago. How are you, Matt?
I'm great, Natalie. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing really well. Hey, thanks very much for joining me for an idle chat. I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Likewise, this is super fun.
Well, I hope so. We'll see what the cards have in mind for us. Let's see. First card, Matt. Who would you nominate to have their own reality TV show?
Wow, who would I nominate to have their own reality TV show? I guess it just depends on what the content and the people would want to see because I can think of multiple people for different things. If people like the drama, the people that are fans of the Real Housewives series. I can think of people in the performing arts world that I was once involved in that would fit that bill. Um, for comedy, I could think of people that I would nominate that I just find super duper funny. Um, but because it's topical for me, I just recently saw a video and I just have the utmost respect. I think Dick Van Dyke would be awesome for a reality TV show, especially how he has aged so gracefully. He still has his mind, which is amazing at his age. And I know he's limited physically, but I just saw a video of him dancing with Coldplay at 90 some years old. Like, I think that would be really cool just to follow him around and hear stories. I have the utmost respect for the elderly and the lessons that they can teach through their perspectives. And I hear a guest barking. Maybe your dog would make a great reality show.
Janny thinks she would be great at it. I think Dick Van Dyke is a better solution.
She's like me.
Dog, pay attention to the DOG. Well, I would watch Dick Van Dyke. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Matt, if you were given $10 million to open a museum, what kind of museum would it be?
Oh wow, what kind of museum would it be? Um, Boy, these idle chat questions are hard. Gosh, I have such appreciation for craftsmanship, especially movie costumes, movie sets, theater costumes, theater sets. Um, I was in London a few years back and did a tour of the Harry Potter set and got to see the costumes. And it's one of those things that we take for granted when we go to the theater or we go to the movies, and the amount of detail that is put into these sets and into these costumes. I think that's what I would open. I would open a museum filled with sets and movie costumes from theater costumes from famous shows, famous plays, famous movies. Because it helps with the imagination too. You can remember, there's a nostalgia piece to it, but you can also remember the first time you saw that movie. And it'll, I think, ignite personal experience and personal emotions. So I think that would be a really interesting museum to go to.
Sure, I think that plays into the idea that a picture paints a thousand words,
Mhm.
and that, humans, we absorb most of the story from the visual,
Yeah.
not the written word. And costumes play a really big role in that way.
Huge. And like I said, the amount of detail and time that these craftspeople that have been sewing costumes, building costumes, designing costumes, um, the different fabrics that are involved, the different colors, the dyeing. Um, the one of the things they do when you go in for your first costume fitting in a theatrical production, they try it on, make sure it fits, they pin you up and do all the alterations and stuff, and then they say, now don't go lose or gain a lot of weight. But then they do something called distressing. And so like for leather, they'll they'll work out the leather and make it look like it's really worn out, or they'll wash it in like a gray paint and then wash it like 15 times to make it look like it's super aged and really old. And just that level of craftsmanship is, again, I'm so appreciative of the work that goes on behind the scenes. We go to a 2.5 hour, 3 hour movie or theatrical production and we're like, wow, that was great, and we don't realize the amount of detail that went into that. And I kind of like, seeing the person behind the curtain, so to speak. And I think that would make for a lot more appreciation of theater and movies.
Right. I was impressed. A friend of mine was in a movie, and the movie took place in a single 24-hour time frame, but it took them 6 months to shoot the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So her wardrobe didn't change throughout the course of the film, but you can't wear the same jeans and t-shirt for 6 months solid.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had to do that prep for that same outfit, but she had 100 of those gray t-shirts and 100 of those jeans. And then they had to distress them so that it fit that particular plot point in the movie. So the clothes got dirtier and dirtier in appearance as the thing went on. And they had to work really closely with the time frame that the director had in mind. And you don't film a movie in a logical chronological progression. It's a little bit from here and a little bit from here and a little bit from here. So she had 100 gray t-shirts, 100 pairs of jeans, and they had to pull out the jeans and t-shirts that fit that scene for that day.
Mm-hmm. I
I had
believe it.
no idea as
Yeah.
a movie goer.
Well, yeah. I mean, and even we watch a show or a play or something, and there's a through line. And that's even more amazing, knowing that these actors, when they made that movie, they had to do it. Sometimes they film the movie at the end because it's all budget driven. So it's like, hey, we don't want to pay you to be available for 6 weeks when we can pay you for 3 days and just film all your scenes in those 3 days. And so, I mean, it makes sense, but how challenging is that as an artist to not know the through line? And one of the things that I loved about a professor that I had at the University of Michigan, when we were learning plays or musicals, he challenged us to learn it in reverse order, to memorize the show from the end to the beginning. And that really engaged the brain in a different way. And I still find that helpful for other things, like when I'm drafting settlement agreements or I'm working on certain things in mediation. Sometimes I'll start backwards, and then I know a lot of people feel in mediation, especially, like accomplishing that low hanging fruit and building momentum. And there's something absolutely to be said about that. But I also think there's something to be said about challenging the most difficult topics first. And then if they can get through that, and you can praise the clients and say, look, you just climbed Mount Everest. This is impressive. It makes everything else so much easier. So I do that sometimes strategically, just kind of based off of the feeling that I have with clients. And so that training and that whole process is a different mindset.
It is. You got to eat the frog sometimes.
That's right.
All right, Matt. Next card: ebook, paperback, or hardcover. What's your preference, my friend?
Great question. I just had this conversation recently with a friend. It's really interesting. It just depends on the book. There's certain books that I enjoy reading because it invigorates imagination. And sometimes when it's a audiobook, it strips that imagination, because sometimes you imagine what this person's voice sounds like or what the swagger might be of the character. But if it's read by an individual, it kind of takes away from that imagination. On the flip side, when it's a book that is more work related or nonfiction, I find audiobooks and ebooks to absorb differently, and I retain them better. Um, I recently also read that a study was done that when you read books on a tablet, in an e-tablet format versus a paperback or a hardcover, it actually enters a different part of the brain. because the part of the brain that's used to like watching television, for example, that's the part of the brain that is absorbing the information from the ebook. You have less retention with that, believe it or not, than you do with a paperback or a hardcover, because that's going to be absorbed by a different part of the brain. And I'm sure the audiobooks are absorbed completely different too. So it just depends on the material. I was thinking like, if I could go back to college and I had to study, textbook material, I think I would do a lot better with an audiobook. I'm slightly dyslexic with my vowels. And sometimes audiobooks, it's easier for me to understand it because I'm not the fastest reader with a hard cover or a paperback because of that dyslexia, but it does register differently. And so that's a great question. And it's really interesting, isn't it? Because again, I always kind of translate that to mediation because that's primarily what I do for my living. And when you're working with clients, one of the things I do like personality tests and conflict tests at the beginning that I give them, so I kind of know what I'm working with in advance. But I also like to just talk to them and say, what kind of learner are you? Are you a visual learner? Are you an audio learner? Because, like, for example, if they're a visual learner, then I will cast their financial documents up on a television screen. And then that way we all absorb it. If they're more of a reader, then I will upload it to their client portal and let them print it and then take it home and read it and absorb it how they need to. There's no one size fits all with people. And so it's a great topic. It's a great card. I love that question.
Well, that's my job.
Yeah, love it.
Keep you happy. I learned that if I am listening to even a really technical book, if I, at the same time I'm listening to it, if I crochet and listen to it, my retention is substantially higher.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
That
I
makes
don't know.
sense.
I don't know why, but fun
Yeah.
fact.
No, I love it.
So, all right, Matt, next card. What is a piece of advice that you would give someone who is just starting out in the resolution industry?
Oh, wow. A lot of advice. Don't give up. Don't get frustrated. Um, Try to have as much patience as you can. Um, Always be eager to learn. Never stop learning. Um, that's probably the biggest piece of advice. I teach at Northwestern University and Aurora University, and I have a lot of attorneys and ex-judicial officers or current judicial officers actually that are my students. And watching them, they've been doing, practicing law or adjudicating for years and years and years, and their brain is programmed a certain way. And one of the things that I tell them, I'm like, if you right at the very beginning of class, if you're right-handed, take a pen in your left hand, and if you're left-handed, take a pen in your right hand and write on a tablet. This is going to be a difficult week because I'm asking you to think differently. I'm asking you to try different things. I'm asking you to trust the process and let go of the control. And some of the most gratifying moments is when I see somewhere midweek Thursday when that light bulb goes off with each individual and you see them actually start doing it. That is really gratifying. And so my piece of advice is trust the process and have patience and never stop learning. Don't just take a 40-hour class and say I'm a mediator. You know, do a continuing ed every month because it's all out there. The will work for food stuff is fantastic. And so there's no excuse to not have the ability to learn. So keep challenging yourself. I hope one day that litigated divorce is the exception, not the rule. It just makes so much more sense. And when, as a practitioner, when you see it work so well, doesn't, people, I think the popular misconception, especially in divorce as well, most of it's uncontested. I can tell you right now, there's always a lot of things very contested, but at the end of the day, when they come up with an agreement that's unique, like a fingerprint for their families, it just makes so much more sense than having something adjudicated or forced upon you.
I think always,
Yeah, yeah,
always.
yeah.
Yeah, I think
But
that's really
when
good
it's all
advice.
we know, though, it's like people have been saying mediation's the future of divorce for 40 years, and you wonder when that future is going to get here.
I think it's here.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
I think it's
These
here.
conversations help.
Oh, everything helps. Rising
Yeah.
tide lifts all ships.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It
I love
does.
that.
It does. Matt,
Mhm.
what is your favorite sandwich?
I'm going to sound very white cis male on this, but I do love a good ham and cheese sandwich, usually grilled with some pickles on it. That's my go-to.
Nothing wrong with that. I was thinking about asking you, since you're in Chicago, what's the best style pizza, Chicago or New York? But I don't want to cause ripples in
No,
your
no, no, no,
world.
no, no. Listen, deep dish pizza sucks. I know it's like sacrilege, but it's a meal. I mean, like you get one piece of pizza, it's about 3 inches thick. It takes 45 minutes to bake. So by the time it arrives, you're starving. You're beyond starving because you think, well, pizza, gosh, I should have this in 3 minutes, right? So by the time the pizza gets there, you're beyond starving. And you've probably had this experience when you're so hungry that you can't eat anymore, or you'll have one piece of something and then you're full. Deep dish pizza, like you will need to go to bed a half hour after you eat one piece of deep dish pizza. I think it's overrated. I don't think I prefer the New York style where you fold it in half like and just chomp it down as you're walking through. That being said, some of the best pizza, if not the best pizza I've had in my life, is right here in Chicago, and it's not deep dish. And so pizza has, there's a strong Italian community here, and pizza has a special home in Chicago, and it can be, New York style is usually relatively cheap and about the same no matter where you go. But I give Chicago credit for trying new things, and there's some really great pizza here.
There is really good pizza in Chicago. You're
Mhm.
absolutely right. But I'm going to agree. It should be folded in half and eaten the
Uh-huh.
way our ancestors ate it.
That's right. That's right.
All
Yep.
right.
I agree.
Let's see, Matt. If heaven exists, what does it look like?
Oh man. No conflict. Um, just joy and laughter and pleasure and friends and family and love. And yeah, I just it's a wonderful thing to think about. And I sure hope it does exist, um but yeah, I think that's what it would be to me, is just everybody feels like they're in their comfy place, whatever that might be. Some people it's under a blanket with a good book and a candle burning, and other people it's surrounded by friends with great wine and a lot of jokes and laughter. And for some people it's really bonding and really connecting. And whatever that special place is for everybody, I hope that exists for everyone.
Nice thoughts. I like that. Good answer. Matt, do you have a question for me?
What's it like talking to everybody from all these different time zones?
Uh, Time zones. Talking to everybody in a time zone means I kind of work a split shift. So for my folks in Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, I'm up really early, 4 a.m., 4:30, 5 a.m. And then as I enter my dotage, a much appreciated nap occurs during the long French lunch hour, and then I go back to work in the Americas in the afternoon, evenings, and into the sometimes quite late night hours. The only challenges that it creates are that not everybody changes their clock for daylight savings time. Not every country changes it on the same day or even within the same week. So for some weeks, 2 weeks in the spring, 2 weeks in the fall, I'm in an absolute anxiety ridden mindset that I'm always late. I'm always late. Or I'm an hour early, or I'm always off. And so I'm constantly talking to my AI. What time is it in Chicago? What time will it be in Chicago tomorrow? What day does it end here? Some countries change their clocks by just 30-minute increments. Some,
Australia. Uh-huh.
yeah, some don't change at all. So it creates a little anxiety for me. But then the rest of the year, the other 11 months out of the year, I don't mind it one bit, actually.
That's awesome.
I don't mind it one bit. That was a good question. I've never been asked that
Well,
before.
I could see why it would give you a little bit of anxiety.
Yeah,
Makes
if
sense.
you grow up in the Pacific Northwest, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late.
Hmm.
And so I've always had this, anxiety about don't be late, don't be late, don't be late, don't be late. And yeah, daylight savings gets me
Do
for a
you
month out
find
of
it
the year.
hard to give yourself grace when you are late?
Yeah,
I bet.
yeah. I'm not very generous about that because we have the technology.
Mhm.
I have an AI tower sitting 6 feet from me. There's no excuse for me to miss a meeting ever.
Yeah, I bet. I bet.
Yeah,
But it's okay if you do. We're all human.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
You're much more generous with me than I am with myself. All right, next card. Let's imagine that an epic feast is held in your honor. What's on the table?
Oh man. Um, it's weird because I like salty and I like sweet, but I don't like sweet and salty together. Like I'm not the biggest fan of like a salted caramel, for example.
Okay.
So I would say salty and sweet on the table and something um for January and February, I go on a vegan diet to kind of cleanse the body and uh my wife makes an amazing simple meal with she takes chickpeas with a little bit of cumin and a little bit of curry, and she pan fries it. She pickles red cabbage, she pickles some carrots over like a couscous, um golden raisins, and it is phenomenal. So maybe something like that too for that would be really good as well. But yeah, that's making me hungry. And also, like, the Thanksgiving meal is my favorite meal. I mean, just everybody brings something, and it's like you get to try all these amazing new things, and um, that's my it's my favorite holiday because it brings friends and family together, and it's not associated with a religious event, and so there's no um, if you're not a member of that religion, you don't have to worry about, how people feel about it or whatever. And I love that. I love that it's just about being thankful for your connections and eating.
But you also get to eat everybody's best because
Yes.
when it's potluck, you
Uh-huh.
call on the person who specializes in that one dish and then they bring it. So you get the blue ribbon winners from everybody's kitchen.
Yes. And there has to be something on that table made with fila dough. I love fila dough. I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it, but like the texture, the flavor. Somebody made a turkey cranberry brie cheese fila dough bite size, like little bites. Amazing. Like so good. So good. Yeah. Yeah.
Yum. Oh, now I'm getting hungry.
Yeah. Good. Good.
Mm.
Yes.
I did a little bites last week for a cocktail party. Phyllo dough, a little bit of lemon curd, and then a little dollop of cream cheese.
Oh,
Just that. The other had cream cheese in the bottom, and then a little dollop of red chili raspberry jam on the top.
oh, yes, please. Yes, please. Yep. I'm down for that.
There you go. Well, Matt, I leave the last question of an idle chat to ask you, what you love about the resolution industry, but I think you've done a really good job explaining what you love most about our industry. So instead, I'll ask you as a last question, if somebody wants to get involved in our industry as you're involved, or they want to learn more about finding a training, or they want to learn more about you and your practice, what's the best way for them to find you?
They can find me lots of places. They can find me at keystonemediation.com, on LinkedIn. They can find me. I'm a member of the bar. I'm a member of APFM, AFCC. I'm very active in all the organizations. I'm also the president of the Indiana Association of Mediators currently. I have one more term left for that. So it's easy to find me. And if they're interested in taking one of my trainings, I do local trainings. I do an advanced divorce mediation training that we're set to launch in February. I teach the 40-hour training at Northwestern, and I teach the civil mediation class at Aurora. So people can find me. It is my passion to teach and take what I've learned and pass it on to others. I like to tell my students, I teach you so that you don't make the same mistakes I make, because I want you to go out and make all different mistakes, and take little bits from everybody. I know Forrest Woody Mostyn, he recommends that everybody takes at least 4 or 5 40-hour mediation trainings, just because you get to pull and borrow from all these different people, plus the people that you're in the cohort with, and then you kind of form your own method. And gosh, like being able to pick and choose some of these amazing skills from some of the greats, it's really fantastic. And then I get to parrot it and teach others. And so I love it. So people can find me just about anywhere.
Just Google.
Yeah. Yeah. Or sometimes just walking down the street in Chicago. Yeah.
Eating a folded piece of pizza.
Eating a folded piece of pizza. Yep.
Matt, thank you so much.
Pizzeria Uno. That's my recommendation.
Now
Yeah,
I know
that,
where to
and
go.
then Lou Malnati's. That's my second favorite.
All right, now I know where to find you when I get there.
That's right.
Matt, thank you so much for having an idle chat with me. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you, Natalie. I appreciate you.